The Tennessee Titans look locked in on Cam Ward with the number 1 pick, but is he worth it? It's a resounding yes for me, and we'll discuss on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert, the brain, Luke Braun. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Shedeur Sanders meeting with the Pittsburgh Steelers and some other options for Sanders outside of the top few teams. We're going to talk about those top few teams and the Browns and the Giants and how they look like they're going to pass on quarterback and what that can mean for them going to forward. But we'll start with a little bit of home cooking on today's episode. It looks like Cam Ward is going to go number 1. Is he worth it? I'm going to tell you why he is. Before we dive in, I do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Luke, obviously, I represent and host the Locked On Titans podcast. I cover the Titans. I make no mistake about it. I am a Tennessee Titans fan and have been for a quarter of a century. The conversation about Cam Ward has gotten to a point where it seems pretty clear the Tennessee Titans are going to take him. So now the question is he worth that pick? And I think I go back to his pro day at Miami where he's yucking it up with the Titans front office guys and he's on the field, rubbing elbows with Brian Callahan. And I think from that moment, we see the Titans cancel their private meeting with Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. I think from that moment, it's been pretty clear that Cam Ward is the pick. And I just want to remind everybody what it felt like coming out of that with our guys from Locked On NFL Draft.
Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami, had his pro day. I believe it was last week. NFL Network was there. Everybody was there in attendance. I believe it was like close to 100 NFL personnel, people from all 32 teams combined to see him perform, right? To see him at the pro day. And I think people may have came in with the thought process, we're going to see some Zach Wilson type stuff. And Cam and his team said, nah, we're going to run the stuff we did on the field, right? The RPO action, showing you the different arm slots and angles, getting the ball out quick, putting it on the face mask of my receivers. And, you know, a lot of people like complain, him and Shedeur and some of these other guys, they didn't do anything at the combine. Cam said, I want to throw to my guys. I want my guys to have the opportunity. I want to throw it to them. And to be honest, if you look at it, like that's kind of the best thing for these quarterbacks. Like be comfortable, be in your own place, your own home with your guys. And I thought he was just really efficient, effective. Throwing session, he had a really good throwing session. The arm talent is clear. Like you see the ball pop off his arm, things like that. But it's just to me, where he's going to really be able to live is going to be the middle of the field. Like those throws between the numbers, he has the arm talent to do so. The RPO game, which that is really prevalent in the league right now. I call him an RPO savant.
Listen, I agree with all the things. Right. Listen, I'm here to tell you, Luke, that's true. That's true. I've studied quarterbacks for a couple of years now, intimately, not only getting smarter with what I'm seeing, but also with the Titans needing a quarterback. And I've never seen somebody operate the RPO quite as calmly and as confidently as Cam Ward was able to do at Miami. He's just excellent with it. So I guess the point here is, coming out of the pro day, he did exactly what he told the Titans brass he was doing. He was solidifying his position. And I think when you look at the tape, you see a guy with a really good arm, with good enough mobility, can throw with touch, can throw with velocity, can throw in the tight windows across the middle of the field, which is really where you got to win at the NFL level. There are things that need to improve. He needs to get better with this progressing through his reads, which is any college quarterback needs to speed up their time or coming from college to the pros. Obviously, the deep outside throws give him a little bit of trouble, but the intermediate throws, the deep inside throws, everything over the middle of the field is calm, cool collectiveness, and then the playmaking truly is generational. The playmaking talent off script, out of schedule. It's out of this world. So all of that to say this, I think that it's not a surprise that after the pro day and after the combine, you started hearing all of the national voices that cover the draft say, I'd take Cam Ward number one. Cam Ward should go number one overall, because all the people who had heard about how good he was finally dug into the tape and they saw, oh, wow, he's actually a lot better than I thought he was. He does deserve to be the number one overall pick. So the answer to me is yes. Cam Ward is worth the number one selection, but obviously there's some home cooking there. From your outside perspective, what would you say with Cam Ward?
Yeah, I have reservations about him. When you talk about a number one overall pick, for me, I see him more as like a mid-firsty type of guy, which is maybe splitting a little bit of hairs.
Put a pin in that. I agree with you. Put a pin in that, though.
Okay, yeah. You're picking first. Pick your guy, right? If that's your guy, take your guy. The RPO thing is interesting that you say that. And I don't want to like get too laser focused on like one detailed thing. But when he does those RPOs, what you're reading as calm, I read in a totally different way. So usually RPO footwork will have like basically one step back and then step into the throw, or maybe three if it's a different kind of timing. But usually it's a one-step drop. And so one step to the left, one step to the right is like a particular footwork. And
he's very right-footed. Very right-footed.
Yeah.
His right foot is way far up. Yeah.
Yeah, which is great. That's totally fine. That's honestly more of a comfort thing than anything else to me. But he will very often skip one of the steps. And I would be fascinated to talk to somebody at Miami or somebody that is more of a QB guru than I am to determine why that is. I think it's a little bit just overly relying on athleticism, because you have the flexibility to do that without really stepping into it. And things need to go a little quicker at the next level. So I would not be surprised that when Tennessee gets their hands on him, they're going to have him totally rework that RPO footwork. I wouldn't be surprised to learn that and have that be one of the like learning curve things that makes it so that he isn't 100, so that Will Levis has to start 3 games or something like that. None of that's a huge ding. I just find it academically fascinating. For me, the biggest thing that I'm worried about with Cam Ward is there's a little bit of a panic gene. There's some bozo panic stuff, and I just need him to like get used to the speed and calm down a little bit, which can happen if his rookie year don't Justin Fields him, which I say on this show a lot about everybody. It's a principle that I think is really important. To not just like throw somebody into the fire and let them die. But I certainly see the vision. And if you're the Tennessee Titans and you're picking first, go get your dude. I certainly see the path to which that can work, which is more than I can say for like half the quarterbacks from last draft cycle, which was supposed to be this crazy one. So he's in there. He's up there. Certainly a Sunday quarterback, which
I have so many thoughts in my head right now. After what you said. So number one, what I would say is the biggest thing is you do have to find balance. I think that a lot of the problems that he gets himself into come from an overconfidence, come from an over sense of calm where he's like, oh, I'll figure this out. So it does result in a final, right. It does result in a final panic moment. But at the end of the day, it comes from an over sense of calmness, which I can deal with more than like the panic moments that a Will Levis gives you, where it's panic all along and it finishes just the way that it started. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit different there, and finding that balance.
Will Levis is not a Sunday quarterback to me coming out. Okay, I'll give you that.
You don't want to give Happy Gilmore the 3 wood. You do have to find that balance. Like you don't want to rob somebody of what makes them special and that off-schedule playmaking, that laissez-faire approach. You know what I mean? So you do have to find a balance you need to
find comfort. You need to, and that will come with experience, but kind of won't come with anything else.
That's a give and take.
So you have to survive the rough patch.
Yes.
Without, suddenly it being year 2 and you're going, oh no, should we have released Malik Willis? Like you can't start having those conversations even when things go wrong. And that's really hard to pull off, especially with
look what Cliff Kingsbury did in week 1 for Jaden Daniels. He only threw 3 passes in that game over 10 yards. They made it as simple and as easy as possible with the training wheels on, just to get him comfortable, just to get him, his feet in the water. You know what I mean? So I think that would be a good approach too. And I would say this, maybe Cam Ward would be QB2, QB3 in like a normal draft class. But what I would say is, go back and look. Typically, it's not QB1, the generational, the top QB, the one that works out. So he may be QB 2 or 3 in a normal draft, which in this draft, he may be going 1, but considering that, it's a better chance that he works out. That's Tennessee Titans logic for you right there. But with that being said, the Titans
from an
aren't
outside
passing on quarterback.
perspective, I'll give you real quick.
Well, right.
That I don't care at all about like, oh, but he wouldn't be QB1 in another draft. Like, shut up. This is the draft class you're in. That shouldn't change your decision at all. What are you going to like wait on him more? Because what if Caleb Williams was in this year? Like, stop.
And what happened with Caleb Williams in his rookie year after 2 years of saying he would be great? You know, you never know. So just take the guy you like and see what happens. But two teams that aren't going to take the guy they like, or apparently they don't like, it seems like, are the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants. So what are they going to do? Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel, place your first $5 bet, and you're going to get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Again, place your first $5 bet, and you're going to get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Crazy day in the NBA on Tuesday with Mike Malone of the Denver Nuggets getting fired. I would not bet on the Denver Nuggets to win their first round playoff series if you're going on FanDuel and you're looking at some series winners, but that's not it. Obviously, you can do single games and you can dive into the player props, three-pointer steals, assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. I love betting on the Luka Doncic assists and three-pointers. Luka, baby, let's go. And even after the game tips off, you can combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Once again, that's FanDuel.com. All right, Luke, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about why Cam Ward is worth the number 1 overall pick, but why he is far from a perfect prospect. And even the level of prospect, I would say, like Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, even Caleb Williams, I would say. I wouldn't put Cam Ward on that level when it comes to number 1 picks, but still a lot to like there for the Titans. Now, the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants are the teams that are next up. And for a long time, a lot of people, even the highest of newsbreakers in the NFL, thought that the Cleveland Browns would go quarterback. But now it appears that they will be looking elsewhere, at least if you believe the new reporting that has come out. And my guy Spencer from Locked On Browns talked about that on a show recently.
I feel like the path they're going to go is going to be take best player available to wait on a quarterback, and we'll get somebody like, again, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, whatever, later on in the first round or whatever it might be. It's just feeling more and more like that's going to be the path forward. Maybe I'm wrong, and Shedeur Sanders is still the guy, and I would love that because I think he's worthy, as I've said. But if it comes down to what Haslam is saying, where he's like, we're not forcing the issue at quarterback, we're going to think about this from a smart perspective and take the best player on the board that we think is going to benefit our football team and be a foundational piece. I think that player is more so. I think Travis Hunter is more that than Abdul Carter is.
Listen, I like Abdul Carter a lot, and if Travis Hunter is going to be a wide receiver, which it seems like that's what his primary responsibility is going to be now. I mean, he didn't run cornerback drills at the pro day. He just did the wide receiver drills, and we see wide receiver contract versus cornerback contract this all season. So all signs kind of point to
whatever it's worth anyways. But yeah,
I agree with you there. So with that the case, can you take the wide receiver, even a really good wide? I mean, is Travis Hunter a Julio Jones level wide receiver prospect? Is he Jamar Chase level? Is he even Malik Neighbors level? Like, I would take all three of those guys over Travis Hunter. So with that in mind, if I have a top end of the draft blue chip edge and I have a top end of the draft blue chip wide receiver, I'm sorry, I'm still going with the edge, even if you have Myles Garrett. I'm taking Abdul Carter over Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I guess the question has to be, when you forget that he played cornerback and how cool that was and how that won him a Heisman, was he the best receiver in the country? I haven't watched Travis Hunter. I'm not going to watch any of the wide receivers this year, so I'll abstain from that. But I think in principle, the idea of if you love the receiver, but you don't love the quarterback, take the receiver, I respect. The Browns are not in a place where there's any sense of urgency right? I mean, maybe there's a sense of urgency for like Andrew Berry himself, because if he doesn't pull this franchise together and give it a future, he's probably out the door. But like,
I mean, after
this
the
Browns
owner
team will
came
not
out
get
and
out of it.
said it's his fault for Deshaun Watson, I don't think the GM and the coach, the owner said blame me and my wife for the Deshaun Watson move. So that has to alleviate
it's tough
some
to see an owner
pressure.
come out and do that for a guy like he's about to fire, right? Or
Right.
something like
Right.
that. But like, so like for Andrew Berry, though, the goal has to be to survive this rebuild. You have to enter a rebuild. You're going to have to, things are going to have to get worse before they get better. You're going to have to shed contracts. Maybe you have to limp through a Kirk Cousins year or something. Like, you have to do that. And your job has to survive that.
Yeah.
If you just pick the guy because you're there and you don't love Shedeur Sanders, and then you just like throw him in and you're out in 2 years. Because if you didn't love him, and the reasons you didn't love, and you were right to not love him, and then you draft him anyways just because he's a quarterback, like that is the last thing you want to do. I think
it's whether Haslam loves him. It's whether Haslam loves him. Because if Jimmy Haslam loved Shedeur Sanders, they would be taking Shedeur Sanders. We know that. He's a meddlesome owner. So I think it's pretty clear that he does not like Shedeur Sanders, and I think that'll help Andrew Berry by not taking him. It won't be, you told me that he wasn't good enough and we shouldn't take him when I wanted a quarterback. If they're both on board,
it still could be. Let's be honest.
Yeah, he could still pivot and do that anyway. Yeah. But do you go to Kirk Cousins? The question is, if you take Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, whoever, like truly, what is the Browns' plan? You can't take, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shuck, Quinn Ewers, or something like that.
Totally trade back up in. I think Travis Hunter trade back up in for Milroe at like pick 30. I think works great. But
who starts this year? Like you can't start Milroe right away. You can't do that.
No, but this team's unserious right now, anyways. So I don't know. Yeah, Kirk Cousins can fall on the grenade. That's fine. Someone's got to be the lame duck.
Well, looking at the Giants, though, let's say the Browns take Travis Hunter. If you're the Giants, you got Kayvon Thibodeau, a former top 5 pick, and you have Brian Burns, who you spent a lot of draft capital to trade for. You have Dexter Lawrence on the defensive line. Thibodeau is going to be a free agent after the year. Would you try to fix that problem beforehand and get yourself Abdul Carter? Or are you saying we have too much in the D-line? We need to find a trade out. We need to take Shedeur Sanders. We need to take Armand Membo or Ashton Genty or whatever the heck else you could think that the Giants would do. What if they took Genty?
Genty would break my brain.
Yes.
After
chaos.
You let Saquon go. Oh my God.
Yes. Chaos.
Just a full tilt move. No, I love them taking Abdul Carter, honestly. I don't think that Thibodeau is the future of the Giants. I think you can absolutely just let him walk.
He's a trade candidate.
And maybe.
I agree.
Or just have an embarrassment of riches there this year. That ain't no problem. Mm-hmm. And then just like let him walk, have your succession plan in the house. There must always be a good 4-strong D-line in New York. That just has to be. That's the case. Like it just has to be. Right. It's like the Steelers in defense. You can't have a Steelers team with a bad defense. It just doesn't work. So you got to hold to your traditions. And then similarly, if you don't love Shedeur, pick your spot. That's the way I will always talk about this quarterback thing. If the Titans love Cam Ward, great. Go do your guy. But don't take someone just because he's there. We saw a lot of teams pass on Will Levis that could have taken him just because he was there, and he fell all the way to the second round. And I think how that bore out, that was appropriate.
Yeah, he's probably a 3rd round pick, knowing what we know now.
Yeah, well, that's where I had him, but I don't want to. I don't need to toot my own.
Look at you, the brain, baby, the brain.
But like, it would have been a huge mistake to do that if you didn't love him. So wait for the guy you love. And here's the other thing: all of these teams know who's coming out next year and the year after too. You might love one of those guys. So holding down the fort and waiting until you get a chance at your guy. That's how the Bills got Josh Allen. The Bills could have drafted someone in 2017, but they didn't because they loved Josh Allen and knew he was coming out the next year. And they were going to make that happen come hell or high water. They accidentally made the playoffs and their draft pick was like in the 20s. And they were like, that's fine. We'll just trade up because we love this Wyoming kid so much. And look how that worked out.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to have conviction, and that isn't just conviction to take a player. It's conviction to pass on a player. But if the Browns and the Giants pass on Shedeur Sanders, who is going to take him? He's meeting with the Steelers, but the Steelers may have to make a move up. And I think that ultimately they will have to make a move up if they want to get their hands on him. Today's episode is brought to you by Chewy. You've probably heard of Chewy. They really do have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. Whether you're shopping for food, treats, or even pet healthcare, Chewy makes it fast, easy, and affordable with over 100,000 products from all your favorite brands. Chewy has everything your pet needs, from food to treats to toys to beds to grooming. And it's not just dogs and cats. They have supplies for birds, fish, reptiles, or Luke's favorite, rabbits. Chewy also makes it easy to manage your pet's health with prescriptions, telehealth vet visits, and even in-person vet clinics. And they have auto ship, which is a game-changing feature where you can get automatic deliveries on food, treats, and essentials. I just bought some liver supplements for my dog on Chewy. They were delivered on time. They worked very well, and he's feeling a lot better. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy right now. You can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewy.com or clicking the link in the description. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping by clicking the link in the description. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. All right, Luke, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. Talked about Cam Ward going number one. Talked about the Browns and the Giants passing on Shedeur Sanders to go with position players. But now I want to talk about where Sanders will actually land before we dive in. Thanks again for making Locked On NFL your first listen. Make sure that you check out the afternoon edition of Locked On NFL with Tony Wiggins in the barbershop. And for your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Draft. We heard from my guys, Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez on Locked On NFL Draft earlier in the show. Get you absolutely up to date with everything you need to know about the draft before it takes place in just a couple of weeks now. But with that in mind, Shedeur Sanders fallen past the top three. The Raiders gave an extension to Geno. Maybe they could take him. The Jets seem to really like Justin Fields. Maybe they take him. Maybe it's a smokescreen. Maybe, but I kind of think that neither of those teams are going to take a dive in. I start to look at the New Orleans Saints at number 9. Very interested in quarterback. You look at a team like San Francisco at number 11, Miami at 13, Pittsburgh at number 21. Look, we'll talk about some of the sleepers, but I think the Saints are the team to watch here. And my guy, Ross Jackson, thinks the Saints should take Shedeur Sanders if he ends up at 9.
But if somehow or another Shedeur Sanders truly falls to number 9, which I'm still not completely convinced will happen, I think the New Orleans Saints should take him. And I think that by doing that at number 9, it doesn't really impact the New Orleans Saints draft class in a negative way, as long as you're getting a quarterback that you believe in. So there's a couple of concessions that we have to make here, right? The number one concession is that if you draft a quarterback at number 9 overall in this year's class in particular, you're drafting that quarterback with the belief that that quarterback can be your franchise starter moving forward post Derek Carr, right? That would have to be the belief by Kellen Moore, by Jeff Ireland, by Mickey Loomis, by the New Orleans Saints. That would have to be the belief if you're taking that quarterback at number 9. I would go so far as to say that has to be the belief if you were to trade up for a quarterback in the first round as well. I think the trade up for Cam Ward is far too unrealistic, but a trade back into the first round to draft a further slipping Shedeur Sanders, if he were to fall all the way down to the bottom of the first round, a la Lamar Jackson, or a trade up for Jackson Dart, I think that's true for that quarterback in that scenario as well. But especially if you're taking a quarterback at number 9 overall, you've got to be doing it with the intent to make that quarterback your future.
Look, a lot of people look at Shedeur Sanders as a pro-ready quarterback, and I think that he's more ready than some others in the draft. But with his ability to drift in the pocket, also 20+% of Shedeur Sanders' throws were screens right at the line of scrimmage or behind. Like, they did not run an NFL offense in Colorado. It's very hard to evaluate Shedeur Sanders when they didn't run an offense that you can kind of see, oh, that's what this is like. So between the drifting in the pocket habit that he has that's not going to work at the next level with his arm strength especially, and then the unfamiliarity that he might have not only with an NFL offense, but by not being coached by his dad, which, we could say whatever, but that'll probably be an adjustment for him. At the end of the day, even if it's small, even if it's non-consequential, that will be an adjustment. And Brian Callahan, Tennessee Titans head coach, mentioned that recently in some comments at the league meetings. Like, how does that adjustment work? So I think that Shedeur Sanders is a guy who should sit behind Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr is an incredible comparison for who Shedeur Sanders could be at the next level. So I like that fit of Shedeur Sanders being behind Derek Carr. And then inevitably, when they bench Derek Carr to save themselves the money at the end of the year, Shedeur Sanders can get that experience at the end of his rookie year and be ready to go in year 2.
Yeah, I think that honestly, the Saints should maybe even be a little more serious. The Saints have been very unserious about their plan in the last few years. They've been very half measuresy. We'll get Derek Carr and it'll be a mid-tier contract. And then we'll get we'll have Spencer Rattler. We'll pick him on day 3 or on day 2. We won't do a first round.
Marshawn Lattimore, but we'll pay Alvin Kamara.
We're trying to straddle all the lines, right? Not really dive too deep dive deep into something. And Shedeur, I get why he, everybody calls him pro ready. He throws a good ball. He can read things over the middle of the field. He's a Sunday quarterback, right? Very much so. I do think there are some things that you're going to want to retool from the get-go, in particular his drop back. He drops back on that back pedal that Bryce Young used when he came out. And it took Carolina a couple years to get him to do it a little differently. It really, really smoked him his rookie year. That does not work in the NFL for reasons that essentially defenses can overload your non-dominant side. And because your hips aren't set up the right way, you just don't have the ability your dominant side. You are just going to not be able to turn and run or throw the other way you want to. There's a phenomenal quote from Harrison Smith about Bryce Young in particular after the Vikings gave him hell in a handbasket in 2023. But so I do think that there's some stuff you want to do. So sure, Derek Carr can have, one last hurrah in New Orleans while he develops and then at some point takes over, right? You don't have to pressure him to start week 1. That's always a nice thing to have. And hey, shoot, if he's killing it in camp and everything's great and he does start week 1 and it's Russell Wilson, Matt Flynn, we're all happy about that. But what it really lets the New Orleans Saints do is light a fuse and nuke their QB room. I would love to see a drafted QB enter the New Orleans Saints and all 4 names who are currently under contract for them not be under contract for them anymore come next year. No more Derek Carr, no more Spencer Rattler, no more Jake Hayner, no more Bendon.
Right.
Everybody gone. All those, the Derek Carr contract gone, rookie QB contract gives them the flexibility that they would need to help kind of release some of that pressure on their cap situation. I think that would be a very nice, it's a good time for them. It really is to bring somebody in. It's very much set up for that to, even if Shedeur Sanders doesn't work out, at least give them an avenue to sort of soft reset things and get out from under some of the problems that they're still paying for from decisions they made in the pandemic.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you that you're looking for commitment. You're looking for a path forward. You're looking for them to actually do something. And I think this would be a good route forward. But the question becomes then to move it forward. If the Saints do pass at 9, I could see them as a team for Mikael Williams, as a team for Will Johnson. I think zone cornerback in the Brandon Staley defense makes a ton of sense. But my guy Louie, Legacy Louie, on the show with me 2 days ago, mentioned San Francisco. Could they think about a trade of Brock Purdy to the Cleveland Browns? And then San Francisco taking Shedeur Sanders.
I don't think they would.
Think about San Francisco just not paying Brock Purdy, keeping Brock Purdy, and taking Shedeur Sanders with a succession plan planned for after the season. What if they decide that Shedeur Sanders is just as good as Brock Purdy right now, and we would rather pay a rookie scale deal for that level of play than pay the $55 million a year for Brock Purdy, and then we can build up the roster again around Shedeur Sanders, which is what made Brock Purdy look like a good quarterback in the first place.
Boy, that would make their March look very silly. If they did that. I feel like they've already made the decision not to do that. I would respect that decision, but I kind of feel like that ship has sailed in San Francisco. They've already very much cleared the way. They're deep in negotiations with Brock Purdy. That contract is happening. Okay. There's no way out of it. It's over. It's happening. Deal with it.
Well, now it'll probably happen now, and we'll have to re-record the episode, Luke. Thanks.
Yeah. It'll happen right as we're talking.
Right.
But I'm looking at your Miami idea is also interesting, spicy. Replace Tua Tagovailoa. Another one.
The health issues.
I think Mike McDaniels goes down with that ship though. I think they're part and parcel, and when one is gone, the other is gone. But it's not right now. I'm looking at Chicago, not as a team that would draft Shedeur Sanders if he falls, but the team that would be very happy to trade down with somebody like Pittsburgh and essentially be on the other side of the trade they made a few years ago for Justin Fields from 21 up to 10 to go get the falling quarterback. I feel like they are that team. Like, I feel like Ryan Poles just kind of would and would be open to that. And then you can get Pittsburgh. Shedeur Sanders is such a Steelers quarterback to me that just very.
What would you give up to go get him? How high do they have to go? And what would you give up if you're Pittsburgh? They already don't have a bunch of picks because of the DK Metcalf thing, you know?
Well, if you look at the trade the Bears made a few years ago, it was a first-round pick next year, a first-round pick this year, or whatever equivalent you can conjure with the draft capital that you have. So you could work that out, right? But if you have, 1 year of even if Aaron Rodgers does end up coming and doesn't like spur you at the altar or whatever, it also gives you better negotiating power against Aaron Rodgers. If he's going to sandbag this thing till after the draft, you go, okay, well, we'll take a rookie then, and then we'll see how much you're worth to us.
Right.
That could help you out with that. But I don't know. It just, for me, the biggest point is that it's a fit. It just fits.
Yes.
Spiritually.
It feels good, man.
It feels right. It feels like a way for the Steelers to not go away from their identity as the most solid and stable rock of a team in the NFL, but still get a little bit of fun hype going on with Prime and like Prime. And all that. Like there's a little fun there, but his actual play style still very much fits what Mike Tomlin is going to want out of a quarterback. And again, all of that stuff that he needs to, that you want to have him work out, like with the drop back, if I'm right about that, you can do so while Aaron Rodgers is old man slinging it for a year, and you can kind of move on from there, but you have your succession plan in place. I could totally see, like looking at this draft order, I could absolutely see Shedeur Sanders at 10 on the clock, trade Steelers up with the Bears, and that being the move.
I agree. Also, another team, I think the Panthers at 8 in front of the Saints.
Really? I think they're happier with Bryce now. I think they're going with it.
No. I mean, trade down. The Panthers
trade down
are a team that I think would let a team. I think because we're hearing
for sure
Michael Williams or a bunch of Jalen Walker. I'm sorry. One of my draft things is I'm not as high on Jalen Walker. Like he's meeting with the Browns. The Browns have picked 2. Like maybe there's a trade back scenario where they take Jalen Walker, but I think he's going to go top 10, and I just don't buy an undersized linebacker who doesn't have a true position. I'm out on that. But regardless of that,
33, who knows?
Well, I mean, that would make more sense to me. But I'm just saying, I think that getting up in front of the Saints at pick number 8 could be somewhere where one of these teams that may be interested, would make sense. If he keeps dropping, if he gets into the mid-teens, the Rams at 26 could be an option to go find their replacement for Matt Stafford. And they've proven to be a team that will use their picks aggressively because they do draft so well consistently. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. For me, your host, the Madman Tyler Rowland, my co-host, the Brain, Luke Braun. As I tell you every episode, thanks for tuning in and stay safe out there.